Greetings everyone and welcome back to another Starship Review. Today we're going to take a look at the Columbia Legendary Temporal Operative Escort, also known as the Legendary NX. This is part 7 of my ongoing series reviewing the ships from the 10th Anniversary Bundle. I call this one the Hold My Romulan Ale ship, as in, just when you thought Cryptic dropped the ball on this ship, they turned around and said, Hold My Romulan Ale. The ship itself is mostly fine. It has a 5-2 weapon layout with experimental weapon and a good console layout. Combined with a commander tactical and the ability to use dual cannons means that you're going to get decent performance out of it no matter what, but that's not exactly the most encouraging start. The temporal specialization doesn't bother me as the NX is a ship out of time, and time travel was a big part of the show. The layout, however, is awful. Let's focus on the problems. First, you can only have a Lieutenant Engineering and an Ensign Engineering at best, and that's using the Ensign Universal as an engineer. That's the barest of bare minimums for a ship that's going to be using energy weapons, as you're most likely to do with this setup. You get just enough to have emergency power to weapons, emergency power to engines, and let it go. You can forget about aux to bat because it's not even possible. But if you wanted to go half bat, you'd have to run emergency powered weapons 1, and that's starting to become too much of a compromise. You can use the Lieutenant Commander fixed science seat for Photonic Officer 2, which is what I did. In addition, they give you both a fixed Commander Tactical and a fixed Lieutenant Commander Tactical. You can find ways to use up that seating, especially if you use recursive shearing, but it's just excessive and eats away all the engineering seats. Compare this to the Lobby version, which has much better seating. That ship can use Photonic Officer 2 or a full aux to bat setup, has temporal seating like this one does, and a pilot seat. And you can use Emergency Powered Weapons 3, which is impossible on the Legendary version. The only thing it can't do better than the Legendary version is use both Photonic Officer 2 and recursive shearing at the same time, but it seems like a very small trade-off for all the increased flexibility and the pilot seating. Okay, let's talk about the Legacy consoles. First is the all-powerful, destined for an emergency nerf, absolute god-tier grappler. Okay, first of all, it's universal console, which means you can put it on any console slot. And did I mention that it's a console? It does almost nothing, but it does come from a tier 1 ship, so frankly, I'm just impressed they included it anyway. Once per minute, you can use it on a target, and it will give them a turn rate and speed debuff for 8 seconds, and disable their ability to cloak. I'm sure it's possible there's some use for this somehow, but I can't think of one right now. So it's probably relegated to roleplay, but it's there for you if you want it. Next up is the Point Defense Bombardment Warhead, and this is a pretty good console. You get a 25% Cat 1 projectile damage buff and 1% crit chance as passives, effectively making it a mini projectile locator. The Clicky launches a slow-moving torpedo warhead that explodes, dealing kinetic damage to nearby enemies. This is a very nice console for torpedo boats, and a lot of people use it for the crit chance and 2-piece with the DPRM console because you get an extra 33% Cat 1 phaser, disruptor, and plasma damage. I stopped using that combo personally, partially because I have a lot of very powerful consoles to choose from, and as an engineer, the DPRM isn't quite as valuable to me as it would be to, say, a tactical captain, because I have an emergency button with miraculous repairs, and 1/2 of the value in DPRM is the healing. However, it's still a good combo, and the Point Defense Bombardment Warhead is a really good standalone console for torp builds, and since it was originally a Lobby console, it now becomes an account unlock, so that's quite a bit of value. This and the Legacy trait are the highlights here. Speaking of the Legacy trait, preferential targeting gives you a 100% Cat 1 buff for 30 seconds for beam overload and cannon rapid fire when using fire at will or cannon scatter volley. It may be a Cat 1 boost, but 100% is a lot, and that's going to get further amplified by your other category boosts and firing cycle haste. This is a good trait for beam overload builds, which is my default for beam boats these days, and like the Legacy console, this is now an account unlock after being a Lobby trait, so this is another high value inclusion. Okay, it's time for things to turn ugly. I hate to harp on this point, but they chose to call these ships legendary, and it was their choice to give this ship the bug zapper. Why is this such a problem? Well, consider 2 of the more recent event escorts, the Tier 6 Ryzian Corvette and the Bajoran Interceptor. Nobody has particularly high expectations for event ships, and yet they designed new experimental weapons for both, and good ones at that. Good ones that also have theme and flavor tied to their vessels. This just underscores how little effort they put into this bundle. At every opportunity they had to do something special or unique or extra, they said no, and gave us the most boring, basic, baseline thing imaginable. But we're not done here. They went and accidentally did something right. You see, when the bundle came out, there was a bug or a mistake that caused the legendary NX to come with the experimental railgun instead of the bug zapper. They confirmed that this was a bug and patched it so that it would give out the bug zapper in the future, and it's likely console players will miss out on this altogether. No big deal, right? It was just a mistake and they fixed it, but let's consider the following. What if they had done nothing instead? The railgun would have been a nice surprise. It would have improved the value of the bundle and made up for the fact they didn't design a new weapon, and crucially, it would have required them to do nothing. In order to fix this, they had to pay someone money. Think about that. They had to pay an employee to take value away from the bundle after it was released. They wanted it to have the bug zapper. They wanted it to be low value because this was never a selling feature of the bundle. The TOS Connie was always meant to be the main selling point. They still want you to buy the Escort bundle that gives out the railgun because that is the selling feature of that product. Just like they probably still want people to buy the Lobby NX for its better bridge officer seating. Do you see what I'm saying here? This wasn't just a lack of effort to develop a new weapon, it was an intentional design choice to make it low value. I'm taking 2 points off for this. And if it sounds like I'm entitled and whining, well, I am entitled. I opened up my wallet and paid $200 of my real money for the most expensive thing they've ever put in the store, that they labeled as legendary. A bundle so expensive that even at its sale price, it was still more expensive than the full price of anything else that's come before it. And they intentionally chose to make some of the items in the bundle low value so they wouldn't compete with their other products. Given the choice to do nothing, they made it a developer priority to remove the railgun and reduce the value of the legendary NX. That pisses me off. And for people out there who are watching who don't like it when I'm so negative, all I can say is I don't work for Cryptic. I put a lot of time into these reviews, and essentially some of them serve as free marketing and advertising for them anyway. But I'm on my own. I'm independent. I don't owe them anything. What I owe you guys is my honesty, and I always give you that. And if I'm irritated, I tell you. If I'm angry, I tell you. I have praised Cryptic in the past before for making good decisions. So when they do something right, I praise them for that as well. And I just cannot talk about this ship without expressing these opinions because they're too tightly entwined. Okay, so where does that leave us? 1 point off for the bridge officer seating, 1 point off for not designing a new experimental weapon, and 2 points off for the railgun disaster. Yeah, that's right, I'm giving it a 6. It's fortunate that the legacy trait and console are so good, but it's the only saving grace here, and those are things you're going to use on other ships. I think the trait and console are actually underrated and probably 2 of the better items in the bundle because they help enable beam overload builds, torp builds, and the 2 pieces decent for all the energy weapon builds. And their account unlocks now. I can't get the bad taste of this ship out of my mouth, but thankfully it's smooth sailing from here on out. The next 3 ships all have plenty to offer that's quite tasty. Thank you for watching. If you made it to the end of the video and you liked it, please give it a like. And if you want to be notified when more of my videos and reviews come out, then please consider subscribing. Have a great day, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.